can you tell me a little bit more about yourself and why you want to be a PA?
Great. So I was born and raised in Pensacola, Florida, which is near Laura, Alabama. So it's a very small town. We didn't have a lot of people in my family who wanted to go into healthcare. But I'm the first one in my family that decided to go into healthcare. And man, someone's coming in.
That's okay.
Sorry, there's I'm in like the office building right here.
Oh, yeah.
So like in my apartment, so it's like I'm making sure during this interview that no one kind of speaks. All right, sorry. Back up. So I was born and raised in Pensacola. I actually went to University of South Florida in Tampa. I got my degree in health science, and then I ended up staying in Tampa because there's more opportunities for me here. I worked as a medical scribe for a year and a half, and then I got my CNA license and I worked at Tampa General Hospital as a tech in surgical oncology. And then I kind of made the switch from surgical oncology to being a float tech. So I could go all around, visit all the different specialties and kind of learn about from pediatrics and whatnot, gain experience in that. So that's what I'm doing now. Anything else? I have a lot of community service in that I work with Prevent Child Abuse America and JWI, which is a domestic violence organization. I work with a lot of abuse victims, so that kind of humbles me a little bit, and especially kind of resonates with me a lot. So I like to kind of incorporate that whenever I become a PA. But mostly, I've always wanted to be a PA. It's always been my dream ever since I was in high school. I was a cheerleader in high school, and I loved, being on the sidelines. And whenever a cheerleader or like a football player would get injured, I was always like, I know what to do. Like, back up. Like, I know it, and I know how to handle this. But of course I didn't. But I wanted to, because I did like anatomy, and I always kind of wanted to be in the action of that. So I kind of learned about sports medicine and becoming a PA in sports medicine and working with athletes. So that's always kind of been my goal, is to kind of get to that point. And I've worked a lot with, the shadowing PAs at Tampa General, kind of getting a little bit of experience behind that. And I don't know what else to say.
That's great. You did a really nice job on that. I think that one thing you could do is just introduce yourself with your name in the beginning. They're going to know, and you probably may have already done that, but it's just a nice touch if you haven't. But that's a very nice thing. You did a really nice job, though. You were funny and engaging, and you showed a lot about your personality and your background. And I just love that story you told about, like, back up, I can do this. And as a high school, that's super funny.
You should have seen me when I did it, though. No, but I'm still like that 100%. I'm like, oh, I know what to do, like 100%. Like my friend today, she had like a rash on her neck. I'm like, go take Benadryl. Like, you have a rash. Like, and she's like, I don't even know what it's from. I'm like, I know what it's from. Oh no. I just do that.
That's so funny. Well, I think that's great. I can't even think of like anything to add for that question. You just did a really nice job. The way I was going to say, because you hadn't totally answered the part about being a PA, but then you just launched right into that and did a beautiful job, really, of like explaining it. So it was great all the way around. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Exactly. Nice job. Okay, so you ready for the rapid fire section where you have a minute to answer?
All right, go for it.
All right, here we go. Start with a question no one likes to talk about, and that way it's only a 1 minute conversation you have to have about it. So can you tell me about one of your weaknesses?
I definitely can. So one of my weaknesses is that I don't know how to cut a story short. So one of my nicknames in college was Long Story Long. So I will go on and on for a conversation forever and never get to the point. but I think one of the things I'm working on that a lot. I think working in the hospital and having to explain things to patients in like a more concise manner has definitely changed my perspective on that, and kind of made me a more fluid person in the way I speak to people. But I do kind of have the issue of stuttering and having, losing the train of thought in what I'm saying. But I'm working on it, and it's getting better. But the more I mature and the more I get better, the more I realize that, it's okay to make mistakes with the way I talk, but, it's also okay to just improve and better yourself too. So I'm trying to do that.
Awesome. Great job. You could talk a little bit about if you weren't under a time constraint, you could talk a little bit about like the steps you're taking to improve, I guess. But overall, I think it's a great weakness to talk about. It's also super funny because the question limits you to a minute an answer, and so you're answering like about talking to
Yes.
you. It's super ironic and awesome. So yeah,
Great.
it was really good. I can see why you were waitlisted, like even just quickly, because I think you are really, even though you're being critical of your communication skills, I think you really excel at like connecting with people when you talk, or at least in this situation, I feel that way. Like you're using humor at just the right times, and it shows that you're just like a warm person and good at connecting with other people. So it makes a lot of sense to me that even though you interviewed late, they'd be like, oh, we really want this girl. So I think you're going to do well.
Yeah. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so next question for 1 minute.
Is that a friend or is that actually? This is an interview, yeah. Sorry. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. What was your least favorite class in college?
My least favorite class, organic chemistry was my least favorite class. Not because it was hard, but because it was hard, but because mostly I think I beat myself up over, getting things wrong. And I definitely learned from that, taking that class, that how to develop more, like getting my develop resources. So at first I was like, oh, I can do everything by myself. I know how to, figure out this all by myself. I was very independent, and it was that class that I had to learn to depend on other people, because there was no way for me to get through that class without the help of my classmates, and going to tutoring all the time, and getting help from my TA. And I think it was just a very
If you want.
no, it was a very difficult learning experience for me.
Yeah, awesome. You did really well. So the key to that question is not being negative about the situation, which you did beautifully because you really focused it on the content and how you needed to work with other people to learn it. I think it's a great example of answering that question, because it really shows that you're willing to reach out to other people when you need help. And that's always something that's really good, especially as a PA, in the collaborative nature of that work. So that's fantastic. And especially the fact that you didn't, go into it by saying the professor was very boring, or, anything negative like that, which is always a red flag. So great job. Yeah. All right. There's a push right now to change the title of the profession from physician assistant to physician associate. Can you tell me what your thoughts are on that?
I think I kind of blinked out. I think that I like physician assistant right now, just because it is what everyone kind of is knowing about. Like everyone kind of relates to that now. Everyone is beginning to understand what it is. There's still people that don't understand what a physician assistant is, and it gives you a chance to explain the profession to them. I think if you changed it to a physician associate, it might have some confusion within the whole healthcare field. Like they might have to go back and reassess everything and figure out, how do we relate this profession to people who didn't know what it was in the first place. So changing that, I think, can maybe cause some confusion in the healthcare field right now.
Mm-hmm. Great. So I think the important thing about that question is taking a position. It doesn't really matter which side you're on, because people will be on different sides, probably on the committee as well. But I like your perspective, and you hit all the points that I am looking for whenever I'm thinking about, why physician assistant would be the right choice to make, to stick with. You said something that was nice that I hadn't actually heard before, which was explaining, people still don't really understand what it is. So explaining, it gives you an opportunity to educate people about the profession when they ask, which is nice. I hadn't actually considered that, but that's true. You might be able to, if you want to, you could throw in something about physician associate and why it could be a good thing to change it, just to show that you considered the other side of the issue. But I think, the way you answered it was fine, and definitely corresponds to, I think, like the standard answers that go along with that. So basically like what they would be looking for. Yeah. I think that was great. You're making my job super easy because you're doing so well.
You need to criticize me.
I'm trying. All right. Tell me one thing about you that I won't find anywhere in your application.
I grew up in a very small town outside of Pensacola, and I grew up hunting and fishing with my dad. My dad was like a really backwoods guy, and he refuses to go to the doctor. That's like his thing. He will wait until he's absolutely, sick as a dog before he's like, all right, I guess I gotta go to the doctor. Like one time we had to go on a cruise, and he had to go to the doctor on the cruise because he had bronchitis and he wasn't getting better. We had told him to go get it. So when I grew up in that small town, I kind of want to bring back, get rid of the stigma of seeing a doctor, seeing a PA, because it's not as accessed. And I think that's a reason why my family never got into healthcare, is because, they had that stigma against doctors or PAs. But I think now that I'm a PA, they might see it a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Or when I become a PA.
Yeah. Well, you're practically already there because you know exactly what to do, right? So in your cheerleading career.
I knew exactly what to do, yeah.
I love that answer, and I think it's great because it shows a lot about your background. I identify with that because I'm from a really small town, and with similar family members, or my family members have similar attitudes, some of them. So I really can see the value of like educating people in smaller towns that haven't always had that access, and I think that's great. I also think it's just nice and unexpected to hear, a little bit about your relationship with your dad, and I kind of listen to you, so you're a good storyteller. I'm trying to think if there's just nothing, there's no right or wrong to that answer, so except for like, if you were to be negative, but you weren't at all. And in fact, I think you answered it well because you brought healthcare into it in terms of like rural populations, and how that relates to the PA profession is great. So yeah, nice job.
I think I took that from the school that I'm interviewing first is at Nova Fort Lauderdale, and one of their mission is to bring healthcare back to rural and underserved communities. So I think that's kind of where I was putting my answer towards, asking that.
You did a great job. And it's even better because it actually is genuine with you too, right? Like it's actually part of your background, which is nice. So that's very cool. Good job. All right, I'm going to try to be tough. Which is doing so well. Okay, so these are untimed questions. You rocked those 1 minute answers perfectly. So here we go.
Okay.
All right. Can you tell me what you think will be your biggest challenge in PA school?
I think that actually, the didactic portion probably will be my biggest challenge, because I have been out of school for 2 years. But I think my motivation to go to PA school and actually get the degree and actually, work as a PA has motivated me enough to really assess and prepare myself for it. I prepared my family for it. I prepared my friends for it. Everyone's on board and have a big support system, but I know that it's going to be a rigorous didactic schedule, and I think that that's going to be my hardest challenge, is getting used to that schedule and not having, the free time that I do now.
Mm-hmm. What type of preparations do you think you might need to make in terms of schoolwork and organizing your time?
Well, right now I do a lot of binge watching Netflix. That is not going to happen anymore. No, but I I think that I'm just gonna have to organize, my life a little better. I have to, I currently work 2 jobs, so I'm used to kind of the hard work and working 60 hours a week plus studying and preparing for PA school. So I am kind of used to the hard work and the long hours, but I think what I prepare most is, maybe doing a little bit more shadowing, kind of getting prepared in that aspect, and getting some more healthcare hours, continuing work in healthcare, and I think just organizing my, you know, how I study and preparing myself with the proper study skills. Even though I have that from undergrad, I think that I need to, reassess a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I mean, your GPA was really good, I noticed. So seems like you had that under control anyway. Great. I'm trying to think if there was anything I would add to that. I think the biggest takeaway really for me was there wasn't a lot of detail about like multitasking or how you would organize. It was a little it didn't have a lot of specifics involved.
Okay.
Discussing your support system and all that stuff was really great. It was more the you said that like the coursework and the didactic year. So I guess I took that to mean more like how you would study, how you would approach the coursework. But you didn't talk about that very much. So it could have just been that I like misinterpreted what you were saying, and you were thinking more along the lines of not having as much time for family. If that's the case, then you answered it really well. But you might just expand on that overall, like why the didactic year would be challenging.
I think I was trying to answer it in the way that, kind of both, but like I'm not going to have the time that I have now with everyone else. And that's going to be a difficult adjustment, because it is going to be long hours and hard studying and adjusting myself to that.
Yeah.
I think I was kind of going in that direction,
Mm-hmm.
but if I was going to go in the other direction, you think I should add like more specifics in what exactly?
I think it was just more along the lines of like how you would approach studying and, maybe reaching out to study groups, things like that, like how would you actually study in order to not so much like what do you do when you're alone, but just maybe talk a little bit about how you have planned. Do you use a planner? Do you carve out specific times? Like just that kind of thing. It just felt a little general to me is all.
No,
So
I understand. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, sounds good. Do you have any other questions about that?
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask about, so there is a discrepancy in my application where I do have a C plus in microbiology, and um, I was going to mention if I could somehow, with the question that they do ask, how I managed to, flip around my the way I studied and everything, and time management, and brought that grade, because it was like one bad test score that kind of brought at the very beginning of the semester. And then if you like look at all the other grades that semester were all A's. It's that one bad grade. It was like 3 grades the whole semester. So that one bad grade kind of brought my grade down in that class.
Yeah.
So, I basically buckled down and reassessed how I managed my time and balanced my social and personal and academic life. I was going to kind of touch on that.
Yeah, I think you could do that, and that would be great. It would explain that to the committee, which is something that is always good to do in case they were thinking about it. I mean, and it also just kind of ties into that answer that I was really sort of searching for, was like how do you plan on buckling down and doing that stuff? So I think that it would really kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, or whatever that horrible saying is. I think that would be great. Yeah. answering it that way seems like a good idea, especially showing how it like really pushed you to get your duck. What is the bird thing with me? Get your ducks in a row. Like, you know what I'm
Yeah,
getting.
I was going to say something about how I don't think it let kind of discourage me. I think it actually empowered me to change the way that I balanced my life.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way of saying it. Yeah, great. And mentioning your support system is awesome too. So definitely, I want to make sure I acknowledge that that part of your answer was really, really great. Yeah. Okay, what would you do if a patient refused to be seen by you because you were a PA rather than a physician?
At first, I think I would have a conversation with the patient to determine if they knew what a PA was, because a lot of times a patient might not know what a physician assistant does or what they're capable of doing. And I would take it as an opportunity to educate them, like, hey, this is exactly what I do. I have the medical knowledge in the medical experience in order to diagnose and treat you. I would love to treat you. I do work alongside with your physician, and I have complete trust by my supervising physician in order to treat you. And if they still were a little adamant about it, I think I would, respect them. It's all about them, and they need to feel comfortable, and it's their choice. So if they don't, they still don't feel comfortable with me treating them, then I would definitely contact the physician and explain to them the situation and get them in contact with the physician in order to treat them.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So I love the way you explained working with the physician, and that the physician has has good trust in you, good faith in your ability to do the work, and explaining your qualifications. Those are all really great things. The key to that question definitely is respecting the patient's wishes. So you did that really, really well. The one thing that you could maybe add would be something about, sorry, there's a bug in here. Something about maybe like helping the patient, you could offer to help them reschedule with the physician, which I think you kind of alluded to, but you could,
Sorry, I don't know what that was.
That's okay.
Just like all right, sorry, continue.
You could also explain what the inconveniences of rescheduling might look like to them, just so they understand, like, if they have to have a longer wait time. If you were working in a clinic that was understaffed or something, they might have to wait significantly longer. So you could just mention those kind of things, like break down the inconvenience. But overall, yeah, you did a great job. So, neat. Let's see. Can you tell me why you want to be a PA versus a physician or a nurse practitioner or any other healthcare specialty?
So I think this all goes back to I've always kind of wanted to be a PA. I don't think I ever considered from the beginning wanting to be a physician or a nurse practitioner. Um, Mostly a physician, because I didn't see myself going to school for 8 to 12 years after college. I just didn't think that would fit with how I wanted to kind of live my life. I still wanted to be in healthcare. I still wanted to be, diagnosing and treating patients. So I, decided to that wasn't the life I wanted to live. Not that I don't respect them, but I have, and complete respect for the field. I just didn't fit with me at the time, or right now. And a nurse practitioner, so you go under the nursing model, and I feel like I like the medical model a little bit more. You learn about the treating an acute care and the diseases. Excuse me, sorry. You learn disease oriented, the way to treat that way. And you have to go to nursing school, and I just didn't see myself going into nursing school and then becoming a nurse practitioner. I just I've worked as a tech, and I kind of understand the nursing field, and it's not exactly something that I want to go into. You do have to do a bit of the grunt work, and it's a lot of times very frustrating because you want to do something for the patient that you have to get in contact with a PA, you have to get in contact with a physician. A lot of times you don't have that direct contact, especially in the hospital. You have to go through other mediums to get there. So I think there's a little frustration with that, and I still want to diagnose and treat a patient. I still want to have the flexibility to go from one specialty to another. I think that's something that really resonates with me, especially since I'm a float. I love being able to see the difference between working in, one day I might be in mom and baby unit, the other day I might be in transplant. Seeing those different specialties just kind of makes me want to kind of dive into that a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Great job.
It's like really difficult.
Good job.
It's a lot.
It's a big question, and you handled it perfectly, I think. Really respectfully. The only thing I think maybe I wanted to know was how you learned about the PA profession. Like, what was it in the beginning? Like, how you got interested in it? I think in the beginning. So you might touch on that a little bit. But other than, did you
go ahead? Sorry.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was gonna say. So when I was in high school, my mom actually, she kind of knew a little about me and how I wanted to go into healthcare, and she's actually the first person that mentioned PA to me, because I did, talk to her about, working with the athletic trainer that was on the field and how he worked at the Andrews Institute, and the Andrews Institute is an orthopedic institute that's in Pensacola, and you got to work with athletes, and so that's where I kind of got the whole, I can work for a PA for a sports team, because I can incorporate both my loves of football and baseball and all sports into a career. So that's kind of how I learned about being a PA.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, overall though, you showed really good understanding, I think, of the differences in the medical and nursing model, and your preferences for it seemed very clear and like very good reasons. You've reasoned them out well. I'm trying to think if there's anything that was the only thing I felt like I kind of wanted to know more about. So other than that, I think you answered it really well. And you didn't sound nervous to me either, even though it seemed like when you finished answering, you seemed like that was a tough one for you, but it didn't come across like it was a tough one. So
and that's the other thing is I feel like I talk in like I said, long story long. I feel like my stories are like this big. And I never get to like the point I'm trying to make. It's like this weird journey.
Yeah. But you know what? I followed along with you. It could be because I kind of do that myself, but I thought that you did a great job with it. It made a lot of sense to me. So yeah, I think you're
awesome.
A little bit harder on yourself maybe than you need to be with that.
And that could be another one of my weaknesses, because I do have a lot of self-doubt, and I think I'm afraid of rejection.
Oh, that's tough. I know how tough that is actually, but you don't come across as having that either. You seem very confident and very sure of yourself. So I hope that helps you as you're going through that. And if you have those feelings, like, just remember, like, you don't come across that way.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that makes me feel a lot better.
Good. It should, I think. Okay, tell me what patient population you least liked working with during your healthcare career.
I think the geriatric population, honestly, just working as a tech, it was just a lot harder. It is the older generation is a lot different than the generation that I'm in, and it is harder to connect with them and harder for them to understand exactly what you're doing, and sometimes they are stuck in ways that you have to understand. But I think that's the thing about cultural competency. You have to be able to relate to every single community and population and respect each one, and I think that I do that very well. I connect with every single population, or I try to find something with that person that connects us. And I think something that I learned when I was shadowing was, especially if it's like a difficult situation or a difficult patient, to kill them with kindness. And that's what I do when I practice with my patients. Is if I am having a difficult day and it is a difficult patient who kind of stuck in their ways, I just kill them with kindness, and a lot of times they turn around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's a really good answer. You might, I think when you were talking, I was wanting to know a little bit more about like when you said geriatric population, I was expecting it to be more about like the kind of care that they require or something like that. But it was more, it seemed like about their personalities or like connecting with them on a personal level. That was what you, it seemed like that's what you were saying, which I thought was interesting. And I didn't fully understand that. So I guess maybe elaborate a little bit more on that because it was kind of like, I guess it kind of felt to me like, I'm trying to think about how to say this, stereotyping an entire age group of people. I think like, like everybody was the old guy on Dennis the Menace, and do you know what I'm trying to say? Like you young whippersnapper. Like I think it was kind of was the connection I was making with it was like, everybody was a crotchety old man, and you were like the young kid that no one understood. And I know that's not what you were getting at, but I feel like if we had a little bit more specifics, it would help me kind of visualize what was happening.
At first, I think I was going in that direction, but then I didn't want to sound like a horrible person. And I tried to turn it around so I wouldn't sound like a horrible person. But really, as a tech, they do demand so much more. And like, because the care is just so much harder, and their bodies aren't, exactly, they're not, great. And I don't know how exactly to say this. They're more fragile than than the average person that I take care of. So it is harder. They take a little bit more care, and it's more time consuming. So they're more in need of your responsiveness.
Okay. Yeah, that makes it make a lot more sense, I think. Definitely.
I don't want to sound horrible.
No, you didn't sound horrible. That question is so scary to answer. I always feel bad when I ask it, but it's a really good question, I think, because it helps you think a lot about it, and you don't want to be caught flat-footed in that one, I don't think. I'm using like every cliched phrase in the book. I've never said you don't want to be caught flat-footed. Anyways, I'm gonna work on that in my own spare time, like find some new catchphrases. Anyway, yeah, but you get what I'm saying. Like when you're talking about an actual group of people, you want to come across as diplomatically as possible. And I could see that you're trying to do that. And I think with the way you explained it just now as a follow-up, that was perfect. So maybe just throw those things in a little bit sooner. Like they're more challenging because they're I think it's okay to say they're a little bit more demanding. They demand maybe a different style of care. Is that what you were getting at? Like they're from a different generation, so the service was different back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times when I was, working as a tech and I do have like an older patient, things that I do or say might not be something that they want to hear or the way they do things. And it is like a little bit more difficult to connect with them because they are from a different time where care was a little different, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So focus it, I think, on that. Just maybe throw in a few more of those details, and I think you'll be fine.
Should I also throw in like a story of like somehow like I don't know, would it be bad if I did that?
I don't know. I think it would depend on the story, but it could be fine if you felt like it was relevant. I don't know. I don't, because it's about like a group of patients.
You don't want to like generalize or stereotype. Yeah, I understand. Just curious.
I think as I think about it, I might lean toward not doing a story just for that particular one. Yeah. Unless you feel like it's, truly relevant, because you are a good storyteller. So I would trust you to tell it in a good way. Yeah. Okay. Can you tell me about a situation in which you had to work with a supervisor that maybe you had a disagreement with, or someone that you maybe just had differences of style or ways of doing things?
I have a perfect story for you. It is great. So when I was working on the oncology unit, we had this 90-year-old lady who came in, and she was Haitian, and she only spoke French Creole. And not one person on that whole floor can speak French Creole, and I can. there's a lot of Spanish patients that I picked up in a lot of Spanish, but French Creole just not going to happen. So we do have these things called blue phones where we're able to pick up the blue phones and translate. Her daughter had come in and she was a medical assistant. So I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. She can help me out. Because the patient was very confused. Like she just acted confused. I didn't know what she was saying, but I knew she would, she needed a little bit of extra watch because at first I was told she'd pulled out one of her IVs. So she was pulling out one of her IVs and then she was trying to pull out the other one. So I was like, kept putting her hand down. I'm like, no, you can't pull out your IV, but she didn't understand what I was saying. So it was really hard to kind of connect with her and try to get her to understand what I was trying to say. And it was just me in the room. So finally the nurse came in to admit her, do the admission, do the admission process. And I was explaining to the nurse, like, we need to put her under a one-to-one watch because something isn't right. She keeps rambling the same thing, even though it's the same word that I don't understand what she's saying, but she just keeps saying the same thing. And I think something's wrong. And then the doctor had come in and I said, I mentioned to him, I'm like, she's pulling out her IV in her arm. She had her blanket over her, but she kept like messing with something. And I was like, I think she's pulling out her other IV. And he looked at me and he's like, great observation. He's like, I would have totally missed that. Like, I didn't even see that. I'm like, well, I think she needs to be under, video monitoring or a one-to-one person and one-to-one watch. And so no one would do anything about it because we were short on the floor. So it was a little bit more difficult to get. And the process at TGH is you have to put like a one-on-one person before, if you don't have a video monitor on the floor, like a camera in the room. So in my case, I had to sit with her. And I went to the charge nurse and I said, she needs to be put under one-to-one watch. And the charge nurse looked at me and she's like, oh, just keep an eye on her. Like, it'll be fine. She'll be fine. I was like, no, something's wrong. So I picked up the blue phone again and tried to understand what she was saying. And the person on the other line said, I don't understand what she's saying. She's not making any sense. So that kind of alarmed me. And I went back to the charge nurse again, and she she still disagreed with me. But I was respectful of her, and I still tried to make sure that she was taken care of, but I kept more of a watchful eye on her. And finally, she pulled out everything in her arms, and that's when the charge nurse was like, "Okay, I agree with you. Then let's put her under one-on-one watch." So definitely saved an accident from happening.
Yeah. Wow. That was a long story, but like riveting. So it felt great. Like I was totally like, what's happening? What's going on? It was really good. Don't feel bad it was long. I liked it. I think that you told it really well, and it was, you came across as respectful, but also like persistent on behalf of the patient, which is really important. So it made great sense to me. I think it's a good example of that. You could maybe talk a little bit about like, when you say it prevented an accident from happening, was that like it prevented her from pulling the IV out and like something going?
Something, yeah.
Right?
Something, yeah, because she ended up having to go to the ICU because she was going into I think there was like I'm not sure exactly what happened with her, but I know she ended up having to go to the ICU for something. Yeah. So I was, taking the extra precaution definitely kind of saved some time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's great. So maybe just mentioning that too, so that the seriousness of it comes across really well. But other than that, I think it was a really great example. I have a call at 8:15, so I'm gonna email the person and ask her. That was like the fastest call I've ever had. And I think that's a compliment to you, because it was like, I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. Let me just let her know a few minutes late. Is that okay?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Thanks. she's a second time interviewee, I guess. So I've connected with her pretty well, so I think she'll be understanding. So let me see. I want to ask you a couple more questions just to make sure that you feel really prepared. I want to ask you the ones that I think you are more likely to get asked, just the ones that are remaining. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So we'll do 3 more questions. I told her I'd be on in 10 minutes, so we should be in good shape. Can you, for this question, think of, I guess maybe the program you're about to interview with would be great. Tell me why that program is right for you.
Well, when I first researched it, I found that through their mission statement, um, they have, like, they do serve rural, urban, and they underserved communities, and I think that they take an emphasis on that. They just want to bring competent PAs into those communities and spread the knowledge of the PA profession, and I think that's incredibly important because a lot of people don't know how great a PA can be to the access of healthcare and how satisfied people can be by spending a little bit more time with the patient. So I like the aspect of focusing on that, but also I had like a couple criteria of a school. 2 main criteria when picking a school was their PANCE rates and their respect, their reputation. So they had 98% was their average PANCE rate the last 5 years, and that's incredibly high. So that was a good sign. And the other one was that they are nationally known, and like they have an incredible reputation through nationally. So that was a big plus for me. But something unique about the program that really caught my eye was the domestic violence training. And with my background in working with domestic violence victims and or working for the organizations and child abuse organization, that really kind of resonated with me, and I really liked that aspect of it. And it made it an important, it was an important thing for me to find.
I think that's fantastic. That makes perfect sense. It's great. I'm going to ask you the hardest question, the one I hate the most, but I think it's important. If you weren't accepted into that program, why do you think it would be?
I think it might be that perhaps the C that I have could affect it, or that there could possibly be a better candidate who interviews a little better. I try not to focus on my weaknesses, only my strengths. So I think the weakness I have, maybe not have enough healthcare hours or shadowing hours, and just trying to build on that if I don't get accepted. Try to improve on that for the next time around.
I think that's a good way of answering it. I hate that question so much, but I just am always worried that somebody's going to get asked that and I haven't prepared them for it. So I feel like it's a good prep question, but it sucks. Anyway, I think you answered it really well, and it's honest. I think, because you're young, even though you have great experience. So, saying that you want to build it up is just a good, that's a great response. Like you have all the skills that you need in order to keep building experience. And yeah, you didn't say something like it's your loss or whatever. So that's great.
I have a great GPA, but I think I did a lot of science classes, and I think I did really well in some more than others. So I think that helped me a lot. So, my favorite class I think was genetics, and we have there's genetics class and like that we would retake and the program, and I think that's really cool because I actually am really interested in it. Like I even did like the ancestry DNA thing to find out my ancestry. So
cool.
I think that's something really cool about it.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I think you answered it in a great way. I mean, that's exactly how I would have advised you to answer it, is like whatever the response is, you're going to continue, building up your experience and becoming the best version of, the job that you have to make your skills better for next time. So yeah, great job. Okay, last question, and this one's kind of a fun one, I think. So tell me about a time when you surprised yourself.
Um, so I think so when I was going from being a medical scribe to a patient care tech, I didn't have any hands-on experience except for what I had working as a medical scribe, and I was told that I would not be able to get a job right away in a hospital setting because I didn't have that hands-on experience. And so I applied at Florida Hospital and didn't get a call back. And for some reason, I was like, I'm going to go to PA school, so I'm not giving up. I need this hands-on experience. I took my resume to every hospital in the Tampa Bay area and went in and demanded to talk to a person in charge so I could get an interview. And it just so happened I was kind of scared to go into Tampa General because it was like the biggest hospital. I'm like, of course, I'm definitely not going to get in this place. Like, there's no way they would hire me. They're the best hospital in Florida. Like, they're one of the top rated hospitals in the nation. Like, of course not. So I went to the nurse recruiter's office and she was like, told me the same thing. We don't really hire people who don't have hands-on experience. And I was like, I basically just told her about my passion and how I just really, I'm excited to get this experience with patients so I can become a physician assistant. And I kind of left like a little bit like, okay, well, I tried. A week later, I got a phone call from the surgical oncology nurse manager, and she was like, can I offer you an interview? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And so I go in the interview, and the first thing she says is that she personally talked to the nurse recruiter and was incredibly impressed at how persistent I was and how demanding I was to get the outcome that I wanted. And it was very impressive. And she's like, she knew how passionate and how hard a worker I would be because of what I did. So I surprised myself in that way that I didn't really expect to get a call back, but hearing that I did something, so dramatic, that led to a great thing. So
Yeah. Awesome. So great. I love the whole story. It shows so much about like your enthusiasm. I love that you linked it to like, I'm going to PA school. I have to have this. So let's get it done. Like linking it to your quest, I guess, to be a PA is awesome. I love the nurse manager who saw that in you and gave you a shot. Like the whole story just is awesome. I'm using that word too much, but like it's really great. So yeah, that's fantastic. That was a highlight listening to that. That was really great. I love stories like that. And I think having talked to you for, a little while now, I think you definitely deserve that. You've got such a cool spirit about you, like the warmth that you have and the passion you have and like a solid persistence, like it comes across really well. So I would be super surprised if you interview and don't just get snatched up right away because I think you're a great candidate.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Now I just gotta show them that. I think my last interview I interviewed in August at Kaiser and I just choked. Like I think I just completely choked and I don't know what happened, but I just didn't answer any question the way I normally would.
Yeah. It was a PA program interview? Yeah. I'm surprised. But
that was my first cycle.
Yeah. Well, maybe it'll be smooth sailing from here on out because you had one rough start, but you did a fantastic job today. So I mean, if this interview is any indication, you're gonna just rock it hardcore. I think you did fantastically.
Compared to the other people that you worked with,
yeah, right up at the top for sure. Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, you really, really did a great job. I would be very surprised if you don't email me in a few days saying like I got an acceptance. So you better email
I hope.
Yeah, I think you're gonna be.
I think you had the same responses like the last PA interviewed when I met him within like an hour. He said the exact same thing about me. He's like, you just have a great personality, and I'm like, you've only known me for an hour, but awesome. Like, thanks.
No,
and he's like, And like a couple of days later, I was like, can you write me a recommendation letter? And he's like, yeah, I'd love to. Awesome.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I see it about you for sure. I mean, you just have a really great warmth, and you're just, I don't know, I think you'd be fun to work with and have in a program. So yeah, you're going to connect well. If you perform like you did today with me, you're going to connect well with that committee, and I think it's going to go really well.
Thank
But
you. I appreciate
my
that.
toddler out there that's screaming in the hall. I apologize for him. You did great. So I'm going to send you the video tonight. I'll upload it, so you'll have that. If you have any other questions or anything else comes up, feel free to send any questions my way that I can help you with, or just anything at all. I'm happy to help any way I can. Okay.
Absolutely. I'll definitely use you as a resource.
Yeah, definitely. I'm happy to help. Other than that, yeah, let me know how it goes. If you think of me, I would love to know.
No, absolutely. I will. 100%. You've been incredibly helpful and encouraging, and I definitely feel like I have a little bit more confidence in what I'm going to say.
Good, good. You should. I think you're going to do really well. All right. Well, I'll be crossing my fingers for you on Monday, and hope you have a good Thanksgiving and you're not too stressed out over the holiday.
Well, I don't think it'll be. I think I'm more stressed out at cooking for my boyfriend's family than anything.
At least it's a different kind of stress, huh?
Right. It's gonna be great.
Well, good luck.
All right. Have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Take good care.
I will. Bye bye.